Good night, Project Ara. What to do with your Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Update your Mac right now, and the problems with online learning. All that and a whole lot more coming up on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1591, recorded Friday, September 2nd, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Tracker, a coin-sized tracking device that pairs with your smartphone and keeps you from losing your most valued possessions. Visit thetracker.com right now and enter promo code TNT for 30% off your entire order. And by Trunk Club. Get clothes that fit and look amazing without ever stepping into a store again. Trunk Club will help you create the wardrobe you've always dreamed of with your own personal stylist. Go to trunkclub.com/TNT and join Trunk Club today. And by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 100-plus job sites, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. Hello and welcome to Tech News Today. This is a show where we talk about all of the tech news that happened that you need to know to look smart at cocktail parties and other places. I am Megan Morrone. Jason Howell is on vacation today, but joining me from the lovely San Francisco via Skype is Iain Thomson, reporter at The Register. Welcome, Iain.
Hi there, Megan. Pleasure as always.
Yes, well, we're going to get to some of your stories in a bit, but let's get right to today's headline. Recode reports that Google's much-hyped modular smartphone will never see the light of day. Project Ara, the phone with interchangeable parts for cameras and batteries and other components, might license the tech to partners, but Google has scrapped the phone itself. What are your thoughts about this decision, Iain?
I'm immensely saddened by it, to be honest. I was really looking forward to getting hold of a Project Ara phone. I think it's a great idea, and it's an idea that should be possible if people had actually got the guts to follow through with it. I mean, it would solve an awful lot of the problems that we have with phones at the moment, in that, you know, there's an awful lot of waste going in there, an awful lot of these things are ending up in landfill. If you've got modules that you can swap out, not only you've got a better phone, but you've got one which is less likely to be thrown away at the end of the day. So, yeah, very dispiriting news if it's true, and certainly Google appear to be giving the impression that it is, which is bizarre when you consider the amount of work they've put into it. Just to write it off at this stage when it's so close to completion is either indicates that something fundamentally is wrong with the very concept, or that management has just lost its stones and has just given up on the project.
I know this was always seemed like a little weird to me. And I know we talked about it maybe in May when they had talked about how it was going to come up and fall. We might have talked about it last year. I know because I was surprised that it was something you were interested in. It seemed like something that seemed like, oh, just gimmicky and stuff. But you made a good case for it. Exactly, that we don't need to buy a new cell phone every time we want a different, special part of a cell phone. Like if we want a cell phone with a great camera sometimes, with a bigger battery other times. And seeing it as an environmental choice was interesting to me. But it sounds like maybe they're just trying to streamline their hardware. That's what sources have told people that, with the, they're getting rid of the Nexus, and so they might have a new phone that we're going to talk about soon. So maybe that was why they had to scrap it.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, we've seen similar issues. I mean, I don't know if you remember the handspring. Which was the old Palm 3s and 5s, where you had slots that you could put like GPS or phones into those. And that eventually died a death simply because they couldn't get the hardware to work reliably. Now, it could be the case that in this, they've just haven't been able to get the hardware connectors, which I think would be the main problem area, to work reliably. But it just seems very odd that this late in the game, I mean, they've been working on this for years. There was talk about a rollout in Puerto Rico. Then that got canned. They've been talking about it at Google I/O, even at the developers conference earlier this year, and it all seemed to be going well. But yeah, the feedback we're getting is that I think, to be honest, Google has now got the bean counters in charge and is trimming the fat wherever it can to sort of maximize profitability. And this is one of the areas that may have gone by the by. As I say, I think it's a great pity because I would certainly have bought one, and I know plenty of third-party hardware manufacturers had already been working on designs for modules that they could use. I mean, camera manufacturers would have loved this. I mean, imagine having a phone with you pick the camera that you want and the megapixel range that you want, that would have been a really nice thing to happen. So maybe they're going to license it out to third parties. I hope they do, but it is a terrible shame. As I say, these things could have been very handy.
Exactly. Well, we have some related Google news about things they are going to release. Android Police says the company will announce Pixel phones, a 4K Chromecast, Google Home, Daydream VR viewer, all on October 4th. Sources say the reported HTC build Google phone will be called the Pixel and also the Pixel XL. Reports say that Google's VR store service hybrid called Daydream will also launch at this October event. Are you excited about any of these products, Iain?
Well, you see, I've been a Nexus user for about 2 or 3 years now, and I love the devices myself. Not only are they usually pretty well made, but you also get your updates well in advance of any other OEM or vendor. So when it comes to security, they are, you know, the puppy's packet, as it were. When you've got the, I mean, they're going to change the name. I don't think they're going to change the principle. It's still going to be a relatively clean build of Android. But certainly what Android Police was saying is they're going to put their own skin on it. Which just seems to be an utterly useless thing to do unless it provides something, you know, of benefit. One of the things that appeals to Nexus Ear owners in particular is you get a very stripped down version of the operating system. It's bare bones. There's no bloatware on there. There's nothing that you've got to take off. Well, okay, no bloatware, because Google insists on adding things like Fit to it. But apart from that, it's a nice clean build. And having tried various other Android phones, I know which one I prefer. So I think there's a certain amount of rebranding. The principle is going to be going to be the same, and then the VR systems. That's going to be huge because, you know, Google wants to go up against people like Samsung, the Samsung VR. So the new Android N phones, when you've got a screen with a fast enough refresh rate, they're confident that that can be used for VR, and it's a good way for Google to get into the space because they are playing catch-up on this one.
Mm-hmm. What about Chromecast? Is that something you use at home?
I don't actually. No, I don't have a TV, so it's Chromecast is good, and it's been a surprise hit in a way. They flew off the shelves initially, thanks in part to a fairly low price, and you know it's a logical progression for Chromecast. It's going to be interesting to see how much they're going to tie in there and how much cross-compatibility you're going to be able to get between Chrome and Android and the various other software subsystems that are out there. So yeah, I mean, Chromecast it's a good way to get into people's living rooms. I like their wireless speaker setup as well. But so yeah, if you're TV-minded, then certainly it could be of interest.
You don't have a TV.
Nope.
I did not know that. Do you watch television shows on a computer or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I've got a projector. We've got numerous laptops around the house. But I haven't had a TV. No, I haven't had a TV since about 2000. It's just my old TV conked out. I got used to not having one and just watching everything on the computer. And yeah, if there's something you really want to watch in film quality, then I've got the projector and we just hang a sheet off the wall and watch it on that.
That's smart. I was just worried that all those references I made to Silicon Valley or Mr. Robot or Stranger Things just went over your head and you laughed. And now I...
No. To be honest, I do like Silicon Valley. I find it's one of those things that usually in an episode, there's about half of it is pure gold. Mr. Robot's fun and huge in the hacker community. The lines for the Mr. Robot presentation at DEF CON this year went right the way around the conference venue. Everybody wanted to be in on that talk. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. Orange is the New Black, very good TV. First couple of series of Mad Men were okay, and then it went downhill dramatically. But yeah, no, I like to keep my fingers on the pulse, but just don't see the need to have a TV to do it. That's all.
Well, let's move on. It's time to update your Macs right now. The flaws that affected your iPhone last week could affect your Mac too, even the most recent versions of Yosemite and El Capitan. Apple released a patch yesterday that would fix these problems in your Mac desktops and laptops and in the Safari web browser. Now, if you ignored the message already, go back and update. Do it now. We'll wait for you to do it. This is pretty bad if people would take advantage of it, right, Iain? I know we know people have taken advantage of these 0 days in the iPhone, but we haven't heard anybody taking advantage of them in the Mac.
Yeah, this is something that really needs to get patched quickly. This stuff is out there. It's being used in the field. So basically drop everything, get onto the updating and get it done because, we know these flaws are out there. Malware writers know these flaws are out there now, and they're going to be rushing to try and exploit them as well. And while Apple's got a pretty good reputation at avoiding malware, it's by no means perfect. So yeah, if you've got a Mac or you've got any kind of Apple device, get it patched now, because this is going to be a very high value target for malware writers.
So this was basically the same thing that we reported last week. It was the same thing that was found by Citizens Lab and Lookout, and just because the code base in Safari is similar on the web and on the desktop?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, based on what I've seen on it, the programming style and style that allowed these exploits to come up in iOS has been replicated on the Mac. It's just certain programmers work certain ways, and this is the way that Apple chose to do it. And unfortunately, as with any software, there are always going to be vulnerabilities out there. What makes this particularly concerning, though, is that we know this is in use. We know that there are people exploiting it at the moment, whether they be by legal or ethically challenged firms, put it that way. But we know that this sort of thing is being used, so it's imperative that you patch this as soon as is humanly possible.
Well, yesterday we briefly told you that Samsung is recalling the Galaxy Note 7 due to batteries catching on fire. The news broke right before our show started, so here are a few updates. The problem occurs when you're charging the device. There have been reports of around 35 battery fires, which is estimated 24 in a million, or 1 for every 42,000 sold. Starting immediately, Samsung has stopped sales of the Galaxy Note 7. They will also voluntarily replace current devices with new devices as early as next week. Customers can replace the phones with another Note 7 or with a Galaxy S7 or a Galaxy S7 Edge, and they'll get a refund for the price difference. So I'm guessing that they know which battery factory the burning, flame-inducing ones came from. Otherwise, they wouldn't be replacing them with the device next week. But they're not saying what battery factory it came from.
No, exactly. I mean, firms like this usually outsource the batteries to a variety of different manufacturers. And what it seems like in this case is that the quality control was such that there will be very small particles of metal floating around inside, which can short the battery out and cause the fire. Now, Samsung's actually been very smart and taken a quite bold move in doing just a blanket recall, because it could have been more nitpicky about it, as we've seen with other firms, and say only this battery and this battery and this battery numbers, and then people have actually got to find the battery numbers and try and take the backs off their phones. So rather than annoy customers, they took the very expensive step of just stopping sales and recalling the lot. It's a move which is, I say, gutsy. It's going to cost them a lot of money, but it's a great firefighting move for minimizing the amount of damage that this kind of recall can cause.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge recall. It comes at a really bad time for them. They showed off this phone. It was fancy. It was wonderful. And now when everyone's griping and grumbling about the potential for the iPhone that they're going to announce next week having no headphone jack and just not as good, just a device that you might want to make you switch to Android. So I don't know. This is a horrible time, and not a great time for just smartphone sales in general. So.
No, I mean, we've kind of reached a level now where it's that we kind of reached with the PC market maybe 10 years ago, where processor speeds are now such that the old argument that you have to replace your phone in order to upgrade and get better speeds out of it is no longer really valid, because they're fast enough that you can do pretty much everything that you'd want to do with them. The exception to that is virtual reality, which is why Google is getting a whole new range of phones capable of VR. But Samsung should really have been in good position to mop up from Apple's mistakes. If, as seems highly likely, Apple is going to dump the headphone jack, then that's going to really annoy a lot of people, particularly if they can't make a pressing case for why you should do that. So Samsung needed to be in a position where it could capitalize on disaffected Apple users, and this has come at just the wrong moment. I should imagine that certainly some phone lines in South Korea were turning blue when the news came through. But they've taken the difficult step to do a complete recall to maintain consumer confidence, and I think that actually should be applauded.
If I were to write a movie, I definitely would have this as a plot line, because, I mean, Apple was looking bad all week earlier this week with all their tax issues. And then now we've forgotten about that already. So maybe there's...
Yeah. Oh, I know. The Apple tax thing just made me... Particularly as Apple is one of the firms which is complaining that, there aren't enough STEM graduates coming out to supply demand for for technology. Well, maybe if you paid your damn taxes, we'd be able to afford schools which could graduate good STEM graduates. But no, it's just like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. It's nothing to do with us, paying a 0.005% tax rate and getting away with it.
Right.
The Irish government was just like, no, they've paid the proper rate of taxes. And you think, wow, you're really letting your citizens down, aren't you? It's, I've got a lot of Irish friends and they tend towards fruity language. And I say there have been a certain amount of obscenities ladening the air in Ireland when they realised quite how much Apple was getting away with.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, now they're getting away with more because they're like, look, those batteries are on fire. Look over there.
Yeah, exactly. Don't look behind the curtain. The great and mysterious Oz will deal with you later. It's just, it's one thing after another. And you do feel for Samsung because they really can't catch a break this week. But, it's part and parcel of the industry. We've had mass battery recalls with the laptops. Pretty much every laptop manufacturer has had to do a battery recall at some point or another. And it was only a matter of time before it came to smartphones. I think part of the problem is that nobody's designing smartphones with removable batteries anymore, or at least very few people are.
Right.
Samsung used to be the leader in that field.
Yeah, well, maybe a modular phone would help.
Exactly. Seriously, if we had a modular phone and there was a battery issue, all you got to do is send back the battery. Job done. The one saving grace of the exploding Samsung phones is that, as you say, it only occurs when they're being plugged in and charged, which means that hopefully, touch wood, nobody's going to be walking around and suddenly, with a phone in their pocket and suddenly suffering groinal burns. That's the disaster scenario for a lot of people, and it certainly makes laptop users very nervous when they hear that their laptop could catch fire. But if you've got it plugged in and charging, it's likely to be away from your body at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's still a fairly high failure rate. Those numbers do not look good, and I suspect a third-party manufacturer is going to find themselves A, paying Samsung a lot of compensation, and B, never getting an order from the firm again.
Mm-hmm. Well, the New York Times has a report today on the NSO Group, an organization that will let you spy on iPhone users for the bargain price of $650,000 plus a $500,000 setup fee. Now, what can you tell us about the NSO Group, Iain?
Well, they're a very secretive group. They've been around for a number of years. Based in Israel, the Israelis are acknowledged as punching well above their weight when it comes to IT security and IT security startups. I actually asked an Israeli at RSA why this was, and he goes, well, it's national service. I spent my entire national service debugging servers, and, if you actually gave me a gun, I wouldn't know what to do with it. But Israel is, it's very high-tech. They've recognized that IT is an area they need to be strong in. This was a country that 60 years ago, their biggest export was oranges. So, they've found, they need to move on in the world. The actual NSO group itself, it sold part of itself to a private equity firm for $120 million and is now being touted as possibly $1 billion firm. We don't know an awful lot about the insides because it's private and they are very, very secretive. I have to say, based on the fact that we've only seen their particular software in use against journalists and human rights activists, I would say they really need to look at their corporate responsibility, if they have corporate responsibility. Because there are some things that it's stuff like that which makes people increasingly nervous and leads to calls for these kind of companies to be much more tightly regulated.
Well, their mission is to make the world a safe place.
Yeah, and if you believe that, I've got a bridge I can sell you. Their mission is to make money. That's what security companies are here to do. Yes, they're to make us safe, but at the end of the day, any company's primary responsibility is to make money. And judging from the fee list which leaked out, they must be coining it in because those are really high prices. Yeah. A flat $500,000 fee just to get your hands on the software and then a per user cost. They've really got to be raking the money in because they don't need a large workforce. They just need a skilled workforce. And by all accounts, there aren't that many people there, and they're bringing in an enormous amount of cash. So, yeah, they can say they're trying to make the world a safer place, but a safer for who? If their software is being used to track pro-democracy activists and journalists, they're making it safer for the people that want those people muzzled. So, yes, all the high-flying corporate jargon in the world doesn't really get around the fact that they're selling this to some pretty scummy people.
Well, they're selling it to governments. I'm not saying those are the same people, but that is always the argument the government uses to look at our information. Like, this is how we're going to find your child when your child gets kidnapped, right? Like, this is, they want to instill fear in you and say, that we're only trying to find the bad guys. So everybody give us all your information and we will never do anything with it that's untoward, of course.
Yes, and it's complete bollocks. I mean, look, they'll always bring up the four horsemen of the infopocalypse. That's child molesters, organized crime, drug dealers, and terrorists. Those are the four hotspots that they will always try and push. But if basically the idea is to collect everything, well, the NSA has been working on that, and all the leaks from inside it say that they've now got so much data coming in that they can't pick the useful stuff out for it. And not leaving aside the fact that there's a massive privacy issue involved in here, having that much data is only good after the fact. It doesn't stop crimes being committed. It just gives you a better shot of back tracing afterwards. So I find those arguments to be, A, deeply offensive, and B, completely fatuous, that it's all about protecting us. This is about having a measure of control which can be used, but can also be abused. I mean, if you look at the history of the FBI, the days of J. Edgar Hoover, they were basically running the country from behind the scenes. And making some pretty egregious mistakes doing so. Now, they're saying at the moment, everything is fine, but James Comey this week was shooting his mouth off about how we need to have an adult conversation about breaking encryption for American companies to make their lives easier. And from everything I've seen it's not just the US government, but from most governments, at the end of the day, they want the information because they know it's useful. It's not about protecting people per se. That's a side benefit. But once you've got this information, you've stored this information, then it becomes a database that you can go back to and forwards with to get pretty much what you want.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I think we might have skipped this part of the story. The reason why the New York Times knows this information about the NSO is there was a leak. Contracts, commercial proposals, emails. If for a security company, doesn't that look bad, the leak? Or we're not thinking that they got hacked. We're just thinking there's like a mole, someone inside that leaked this information?
Well, I think what's probably happened with this one is that one of their customers or potential customers got hacked. The information if they'd actually managed to hack into NSO itself, I think they would have had a lot more information. What it looks like from this is that either somebody that they were dealing with or proposing to deal with saw what was going on and thought, right, I'm going to leak this, or the company that they were dealing with got hacked and somebody stole this stuff. It's always difficult to tell with these kind of things, obviously, because the nature of journalism is that you have to protect sources and keep quiet about where stuff came from as long as laws weren't broken. But I would suspect that this is one of their potential customers either having ethical problems with what was being proposed and leaking it, or just getting hacked and somebody saw this in an email and thought, I'm grabbing that and going to the papers.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do Linux hackers, pacemakers, and frozen PCs have in common? We will find out after the break. But first, let's take a minute to thank Tracker, the sponsor of this episode. With advancements in technology, we have smart cars, smart phones, smart homes. Losing your possessions can make you feel less than smart. Tracker makes losing things a thing of the past. The Tracker Bravo locates misplaced keys, wallets, computers, backpacks, bicycles, even pets in seconds. The coin-sized device is constructed with anodized aluminum for the thinnest, most durable tracking. You can easily attach it to your items via key loop or adhesive. Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth LE, so the battery lasts up to 1 year. You can add a laser engraved message to each Tracker Bravo, like return with an address or your pet info, and you can now personalize your tracker with a custom printed image. Pair your tracker to your iOS or your Android device to find its precise location with a tap of a button. Your phone can track up to 10 devices at once. I have it tracking my keys, my boys' trumpets, my wallet, and a drone. You can also customize two-way separation alerts so you're notified before you leave your item behind. If you lose your phone, press the button on your tracker and your phone will ring even if it's on silent. With over 1.5 million devices, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world, so your lost item shows up on a map even if it's miles away. If you lose your item, the Tracker app records its last known location on a map. When another Tracker user comes within a 100-foot range of your item, you will receive a GPS update of where your item is located. Go to thetracker.com and never lose your possessions again. Plus, just for our audience, if you enter promo code TNT, you'll get 30% off your entire order. That's TheTracker.com, promo code TNT for 30% off your entire tracker order. Iain, you have been busy this week while I was looked through your stories, and I feel like I want to talk about all of them, but I chose 3. Let's start with the first one. During a routine traffic stop in Florida, police discovered that they'd finally caught up with an elusive hacker, Donald Ryan Austin. Tell us what Austin is famous for hacking.
Well, he's famous for hacking the Linux kernel organization and the Linux Foundation. Back in 2011, the admins at both groups found that there was some serious malware infection in some of their servers. As it turns out, this man is accused of getting hold of the login informations of someone quite senior at the Linux Foundation, using that to get into the servers and installing a rootkit called Phalanx, and then a piece of malware called eBury, which allowed him to harvest the login credentials of anyone using the servers. Now, we don't know an awful lot about his motivations. If he is in fact he's only been indicted, he hasn't been found guilty. But it appears at this stage that he was looking for advanced copies of new Linux builds. He also is accused of leaving little messages for admins, which is quite a common hacker tactic, sort of taunting your enemy, as it were, and letting them know that you're there and they can't stop you. And this went on. It took them a month to clean out, to be absolutely sure they cleaned all the stuff out of their servers. And it was a major embarrassment at the time.
So looking for new Linux builds just so he could be the first guy on the block to have them, or what? Why did he want them?
This is what the government is claiming. And to be honest, it wouldn't be that unusual. An awful lot of this hacking is based on people just wanting to get in and find out what's hidden and what's coming and the rest of it. So, this is a tale that is as old as hacking itself. We will really need to see what his side of the story is. I mean, the guy's 27. He's literally just been picked up. He's on his way to San Francisco to appear in court next week, in the next couple of weeks. And we'll have to hear his side of the story. But it does appear the government thinks they've got a case, and they've charged him with 4 cases of computer intrusion. And
what's the possible sentence for him?
Well, each count, if he gets the maximum sentence, would be 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine and restitution to his victims. So that's 40 years in prison, $2 million fine, and unspecified restitution. Now, he's unlikely to get that. He was out on bail. He's now out on bail on a $50,000 bail bond posting. So if he was that much of a serious danger that they were going to give him the maximum sentence, his bail would have been either refused or a lot higher. I suspect he's going to get away with maybe 2 or 3 years inside, maybe a ban on internet use for 5 or 10 years. And unspecified damages. But, it remains to be seen. Obviously, having maximum sentences like that is intended as a deterrent, but they very rarely get done.
So if you're going to hack, you're going to hack the Linux kernel, just drive the speed limit and stop at stop signs. That's the moral of the story.
Well, if you're going to do the crime, then you've got to be aware that you're going to do time eventually. That isn't unless you're a Stanford rapist, in which case you're let out within 3 months. But I mean, if it was him and anyone who is considering hacking, just remember there is a possibility or even a probability that you will get caught and your life will be pretty much buggered up, because nothing does that faster than prison time. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things. If he's done it, the government will come down hard. Unless, of course, it's the government doing the hacking, in which case they'll legalize it. But that's another story entirely.
Well, last week, we heard that several pacemakers contained vulnerabilities that could be exploited by hackers. You've looked into the story, and it might have been a tad bit overblown. First, explain what the original claim was and who was making it.
Okay, this was a story which had me deeply, deeply uncomfortable, so much to the point that I considered not covering it because it would be doing the company's job for it. It's about a company called MedSec, who are security researchers concentrating on medical devices. Now, they claim to have found at least 2 critical vulnerabilities in products made by a company called St. Jude Medical, which do implanted pacemakers and defibrillators. So, I mean, that's really critical stuff to get right. And while medical device hacking has been done for about 5 years or so, this was still a major issue. Now, rather than go to the device manufacturer to sort this out, they went to a financial firm called Muddy Waters, and short sold the stock and then went public in a sort of big media splurge, and their fee was dependent on how far the stock fell. Now, I've read through the original and supplemental reports. It may be that they have an issue, but it doesn't seem to be quite as big an issue as they're making out. And this week, the University of Michigan published a report rubbishing at least one of their claims, saying that it could just be that they'd plugged the actual monitoring device in wrongly and were just getting an error message that way. I've contacted MedSec on a number of occasions, never heard anything from them. Contacted Muddy Waters, did get a 2-sentence statement out of them, which was pretty, and then some background stuff which I can't go into. But it seems at this stage like this has been overblown. And one of the things which really made me concerned about this is that it's going to massively, if this kind of tactic of short selling and then going public on the results rather than trying to fix them actually becomes commonplace, we're going to see levels of fear, uncertainty, and doubt merchandising that the security industry has never even come close to. And let's face it, when it comes to FUD, they've got a pretty bad reputation. So it's a very disturbing story.
It is, and it's confusing. I mean, you don't hear, I haven't heard much about it really at all, because it's like, oh, what's going on here? Who's involved? All you hear is someone could hack my pacemaker, and that's, you don't read anymore.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, it did make me it made me very nervous, because the people who got these are now going to be checking, oh, that's my device. What do I do? Do I turn it off? Do I go and pester my doctor? These are people who are in a pretty poor way. If you've got a pacemaker or defibrillator implanted, you're in pretty poor health anyway. They've now got all this worry on their minds. They've heard that there is a critical flaw which could run down the battery or crash their pacemaker. They're in a panic. They're then going to their doctors, and the doctors, who probably aren't that technically aware, they're now in a panic. The company that makes the devices is facing an attack on the stock exchange and has got its hands full with that. It's just a really bad situation. And I don't honestly see how MedSec can say ethically that this was the thing that they should be doing.
Well, when I first read your story and you talk about this investment firm called Muddy Waters, I thought you were making a joke.
No.
Like, that is an interesting name for a investment firm.
Yeah, they're a California-based firm, and they specialize in researching and sort of holding firms to account by these kind of stock dealings. Which sounds pretty good, and it has been effective in some areas, but it's also about making themselves a fair amount of cash in the meantime. I mean, short selling is ethically, it's allowed, it's legal. Whether you'd say it's moral or not is another question. But for a security firm to do this, I think really it breaks a lot of the ethical boundaries that so many people have worked very hard to get sorted out. I mean, we forget 10 years ago, they were arresting hackers for pointing out that for getting in contact with a company and saying, there is a flaw in your system, you need to force us out. Then companies got wise. They started offering bug bounties so that researchers could make a living, and that they could have a much wider base for checking their code for flaws. And the situation was developing really rather well. I mean, even Apple got into the bug bounty business, which they announced at the Black Hat conference this year. But then something like this comes along, and it breaks the entire trust model. And I've been speaking to a lot of security folks, both on the security product vendors and also individual security researchers, and they are fuming about this because it sets the cause back of responsible disclosure and security. There's no way that you could call this responsible disclosure of a vulnerability by any manner of means, as far as I can see.
Mm-hmm. So what's going on, you think, is that it's possible they might have some vulnerabilities, these pacemakers, but they're not dangerous to a person's health?
I think there are some vulnerabilities. It's yet to be proven whether they're dangerous to a person's health. Certainly St. Jude has received a partial report on this, and they say that it would only be actionable within, I think it's 7 feet of the device, relatively easy to patch. I mean, these are, when you read through, one of the things that worried me was when I read through the original MedSec report, it was very big on hyperbole. It was like, such and such could possibly be used to do a sort of mass attack against these things. An awful lot of weasel words: could, maybe, should. It was very, sort of, it went out of its way to make a big statement about, this is a dangerous thing. I think it was first or second page. They had a cardiologist saying, I will never implant these devices until this is fixed. And then it turns out that this particular cardiologist is a board member of MedSec and has a financial stake in this. So I'm highly suspicious. I would, As I say, I've tried to contact MedSec about this. They're not saying a word. And I think, to be honest, at this stage, it does look like it's been overblown.
Well, this week, Microsoft released a fix for freezing PCs. What can you tell us about what's going on here?
Windows 10 anniversary issue. It's like the red-headed stepchild of their operating family at the moment. It's Microsoft pushed out this Windows 10 anniversary edition, and it was found with some solid-state drives to cause the system to freeze up completely. So 7 days later, we get an update which fixes this problem almost. I mean, it'll fix most of the problems out there, but if you're running twin drives in a RAID configuration, which, to be honest, you really should be, if you're worried about sort of losing data in a crash, then there are additional problems which you're going to need to do some manual editing of the operating system. And what with this, the PowerShell problems that we've seen with Windows 10 anniversary, the problems with plugging a Kindle in and bricking the system, it does look as though Microsoft rushed this one out and didn't properly bug test it. Now, it's always tricky because you've got that many users out there of Windows systems that you're never going to find all the flaws. But it does seem to have been a very dodgy couple of a month or so for Windows 10 reliability. And that's not really what the company needs at the moment because, it's been, now that the free upgrade period for Windows 10 is over, and after pushing so many people to download it, to be left with a buggy operating system does not look good.
Now, are they still doing Patch Tuesday, or are they just releasing patches whenever they need to now?
Well, with Windows 10, they are releasing patches whenever they need to. Patch Tuesday is still a thing, but that's because they've got a massive install base. I mean, of all Microsoft's operating systems, Windows 7 is by far and away the most popular one. Patch Tuesday will be a part of that. Now, Microsoft has said they want to get rid of Patch Tuesday and just do continual over-the-air updates. But based on the last month, certainly they need to. But certainly the Windows 10 machines in our offices are doing much more regular updates than just once a month, which is good in a way because you want to push these things out as quickly as possible. But if you're doing it in such a way that it breaks the machine, then you're rapidly going to lose customer support. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have some feedback that I think you're going to be interested in commenting on,
goody.
Ian, because we already talked a little bit about this. Matt Schultz writes in about our continuing discussion of Apple's taxes. He says, we all want expensive government programs such as Social Security, Medicare, welfare, military protection, and a kick-butt Olympics team. To pay for this, we either need to tax super rich Apple and its gold-plated executive team or the average worker. I know what I would pick. Besides, if we close the tax loopholes, Apple would simply use its trillions to buy an armada of cruise ships and move its corporate headquarters to international waters, or maybe build an island. Wouldn't you love to see how Johnny Ive designs an island?
Yeah, well, actually, that's not a million miles away from the truth. You remember, Peter Thiel, the very thin-skinned billionaire who shut down Gawker. He's a big supporter of this idea of seasteading, whereby you build floating cities out in international waters. There's one plan already to actually have programmers just outside the 12-mile limit outside San Francisco, working on their own on ships to code away and get around immigration laws. It's one of those things that it sounds like a cute idea, but once you realize you've got to have somebody to physically grow crops, mine metal, and build chip fabs, it kind of falls down. We're not there. We're not self-sufficiency yet. But in terms of, with regards to his point, yeah, companies need to pay their taxes. When it comes to a point when the most valuable company in the world is paying a 0.005% tax rate, and you and I are paying, 30-40% tax, not to mention sales tax, not to mention indirect taxes in America like medical care and student tuition fees. There's a limit to how much you can squeeze out of people who aren't very rich. Whereas the people who are very rich and are funding people who make our laws are getting away with highway robbery. There's really no other word for it. So, yeah, they need to be held to account.
Well, after the break, Father Robert Ballecer talks to a rep from Sony about why you might really need that $3,000 gold Walkman. But first, let's take a minute to thank Trunk Club, the sponsor of this episode. Shopping is frustrating. You find yourself wandering from store to store only to find clothes that are ill-fitting or not what you're looking for. And now, thanks to Trunk Club, you can get clothes that look great and fit perfectly without ever stepping into a store again. With Trunk Club, you can easily upgrade your wardrobe with fall essentials like blazers and button-downs for men and sleeveless coats and sweater dresses for women. Just type in your measurements, share your style and spending preferences to connect with the right Trunk Club stylist for free. Your stylist will contact you via phone, email, or messenger to understand your unique look and learn more about what you're looking for. Your stylist will select items for your trunk from over 80 top brands and will send you a preview of clothes that might be a good fit. My stylist, Carolyn, didn't get everything right the first time, but she totally gets me now. She sends me things that I would never have been able to find myself. And I message her, and we were just messaging just before the show. It's Friday night. It's great. I love it. Even when she does suggest something that I don't want, I get a chance to review it and make edits before it's shipped. You have 5 days to try on the clothes, keep what you like, and send back the rest. Trunk Club is not a subscription service, and shipping is always free. Trunk Club is backed by Nordstrom, which means they have the highest standards in quality and customer service. And if you live in Dallas, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or DC, you can stop by one of the Trunk Club clubhouses to work with your stylist in person for free. Premium clothes, expert advice, no work, thanks to your very own personal stylist at Trunk Club. Get started today at trunkclub.com/TNT. That's trunkclub.com/TNT, and we thank Trunk Club for their support. Father Robert Ballecer is in Berlin for IFA, the International Electronics Show, and we asked him to check out that $3,000 gold Sony Walkman we talked about, and here is what he found.
Here at IFA 2016, sometimes to go forward, you need to take a few steps back. That's why we're here at the Sony booth, and I'm standing next to Eric, who's going to tell us all about their newest Walkman. No, you heard me right. They're bringing it back. Eric, when people think of the Walkman, there's a bit of nostalgia. We think of that first player that we had. In fact, for me, it was that beautiful little cassette deck that gave me the freedom to listen to my tunes wherever I needed it. Yeah. Sony's kind of trying to bring that back, and you're bringing it back in a big way. Tell me what this is.
Right. Well, thank you for the comment about the Walkman. I mean, Walkman to us is an icon. In many ways, it's a kind of Sony signature. So we are very conscious of the fact that it's our 70th anniversary this year. And in a way, this launch for this product represents kind of a landmark for us, because it's part of a range of products which we call the Signature Series. And it represents the pinnacle of what we believe we can achieve in terms of a personal music player. So we're looking at a product that plays pure music. It's designed for the very, very best sound quality, but also capable of handling all of the latest high-resolution sound file formats. Of course, you can play MP3 on it, but you can actually go up to very high levels of quality indeed. These products are capable of what we call quad DSD. So this is a super fast 1-bit stream where the sound quality is really amazing. You have to hear it to believe it. But it handles everything else in between as well. So whether you're listening to PCM at 32-bit or FLAC at 24-bit, 192K as we call it, these products can deliver. We designed a new style of custom interface. So a menu system, an operating system that's very simple, very easy to control, dedicated for music listening. The insides of the product are remarkable. Everything down to the material choice, the parts, the devices, the wiring, the cable, the board layout, everything is designed to deliver the best audio quality. We even have two types of headphone connection. We have what's called a balanced and an unbalanced connection. And the balanced connection features a new standard, one that allows you to have a simple single socket for balanced wiring to your headphones, where you will get minimum crosstalk, great channel separation, and a much closer involvement with the quality of what the music can deliver. I can show you more, and I'd be very happy to do so.
I love the display here because we get to see what goes into this. Now, we should mention that we were looking for sort of the most ostentatious, the most gonzo piece of technology we could find at the show, and it was here, which is strange because Sony is known for cutting-edge phones, for gaming systems, for TVs, for audio systems that really offer us this great price performance. But you've gone in a different direction with this. This is really, like as you said, the Signature Series. That's going to cost you $3,200. But for that $3,200, you get oxygen-free copper that's gold-plated, that's milled, so it's a unibody. You get the highest quality components that can give out, 64 times the sampling rate that you would get out of a CD. You really, truly get a device that you kind of want people to see that you're using. Now, tell me a little bit about how you designed it and how it was constructed.
Okay, well, if you take a look at the showcase behind you, you'll see that we have two versions of this Walkman. We call it the A and the Z. Now, they're similar in design concept, and that starts with the actual way that they're constructed, the physical construction of the product. They are from an ingot. That is to say, they're machined from a solid block of metal. Now, the aluminium version, the WM1A, well, it's aluminium. The other guy, he's cut from oxygen-free copper. So we're talking about a solid block of oxygen-free copper, machined to make a chassis that we then gold plate. Now, we gold plate it not for show, we gold plate it for a technical reason. One of those reasons is very low electrical resistance for the best audio quality. It means that the quality will be maintained because gold doesn't tarnish or change in the same way that other kind of plating material does. Inside, we choose for both models very high quality wiring to go from the amplifier up to the headphone connections. But in the Z version, we use Kimber cable. So this is special super grade audiophile quality cable designed to connect from the amplifier through to the output connections. There are other things like the battery. The battery features a supercapacitor, which is a special kind of capacitor to ensure that you get long, steady current delivery to enjoy your music. You can have up to 30 hours of high-resolution playback on these models. There are other things. For example, you can connect to your playback device like the new Signature Series headphone amplifier by a simple plug-and-socket arrangement on the bottom. We have no analog output on this device except through the headphones. So internally, we were able to split the digital signal processing and the power part from the output amplifier, which makes the music to go through the headphone sockets. So you get pure separation and minimal interference from that design.
I'm so happy that you're explaining the technology behind this and the science behind the design, because to the untrained eye, it sounds like this comes out of the Jay Biederman catalog. This is sort of it's one of these pieces of tech that's designed for people who have more money than sense. But when you explain it that way, you understand, no. The reason why it costs so much, the reason why it costs $3,200 is this is the audio player you would make if you absolutely needed the best possible technology to make the best possible sound. From the casing to the wiring to the internal design, it is a $3,200 media player.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really appreciate that comment because that is what it's about. It's about designing for intention, for audio, supreme audio quality, to give you what the artist wants you to listen to. What we want to do with these products is to let you have your music with you so that you can reach back through the recording change and almost be there and touch the presence of that musical event. And that's what I genuinely believe you'll experience if you have a listen to the Signature Series Walkman.
Eric, thank you very much for speaking with us. Thank you for showing off this beauty of a product. You know, especially here when we are surrounded by technology that people will snatch up. It's nice to see something that is truly aficionado grade. And I think that's what we've seen. Megan, Jason, we're going to send it back to you in the studio. Don't forget that we've got complete coverage of IFA 2016 on the Twit Live Specials page. I'm Father Robert Ballecer, host of Know How and This Week in Enterprise Tech. Now back to you in the studio.
So sadly, I don't have $3,200 to spare. But I mean, if you really cared about audio and you did have that money, I could see how this might be something you might want to buy.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a total audiophile and you've actually got music in that higher spec format, then I guess it makes sense. I mean, audiophiles are like gamers. They are willing to spend stupid amounts of money on the latest kit just to get that little extra, you know, up from 90% good enough to 100% good enough. And, you know, if they've got the money, I wouldn't look down on anyone necessarily for buying a really good high-end media player, but the gold plating, nothing screams wanker like gold plating. I mean, it's just more money than sense. Also, you know, if you see someone with one of these, you think you're kind of worried they're going to get mugged. I mean, it does look like a very nice high-end player. I wish we got some more details about the actual headphones themselves, because all too often we've seen this with the iPod in particular. When the iPod first came out, fantastic media player, but the headphones were dreadful. Leaked sound, very low bass response. You know, it's so often these little things which make all the difference. So yeah, if you've got $3,200 sitting in your back pocket, you're really into music, and you're willing to re-rip all your CDs in the highest possible quality format, then fine, go knock yourself out. But it's not going to be on my Christmas list.
Well, I guess I have to figure out something else to buy you then, Iain.
I'm a very simple man to please. You know, single malt, cask strength Scotch, you're sorted. You know?
Well, my question is, like, if you're a real audiophile, aren't you just like sitting back on your couch enjoying the music? Like, do you really need to have that kind of high fidelity, like while you're riding the bus, trying to keep from getting mugged, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, some people like it. I mean, personally, I listen to music on my commute in and to and from work, and a lot of people do as well. But I mean, getting the best quality music is very, very important for a certain subset of people. Whether or not it's worth that, if it's worth that amount of money to them, then fine. I suspect an awful lot of these devices are going to be used for willy waving and just going, look at what I've got. Aren't I the best audiophile in the world? But, you know, that's the nature of technology. Everybody does it. I've seen people do that with their smartphones, with their laptops, with their cars. You know, it's like if you talk to a Tesla owner, if you talk to somebody who actually owns a Tesla, it seems to be at the moment that they will find a way to shoehorn that into the conversation within the first 5 minutes at some point, either brazenly or quite subtly. But, you know, fans exist of all levels of technology. They're willing to pay all amounts of money to actually use it and show it off to other people. And I think that's exactly the market that Sony's aiming for on this one.
Exactly. Well, you know, rather than just say like, oh, that's crazy, I'm glad that Father Robert had a chance to talk about what was inside this device. So
yeah, I mean, he nearly had me convinced on that one, but yeah, it's just too much money.
Well, TNT's fan of the day is Ryan Murray, who tells us how he listens to the show. During my summers, I come to a remote part of Oregon, which isn't technologically inclined. Thanks to your show, I can keep in the loop from my tractor as I work in the Malheur Refuge, probably with his gold Walkman, but I'm not sure. Have you heard of the Malheur Refuge? I don't know if I'm...
No, I haven't. It certainly looks magnificent desolation, certainly.
Yes. Well, show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup. Post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it. After the break, we'll discuss how you can go to school online without giving up your Netflix binging habit. But first, let's thank ZipRecruiter, the sponsor of this episode. Monday is Labor Day in the U.S. That's the holiday dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. Maybe you're looking for some of those workers to come to work for you. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites. And with ZipRecruiter, now you can. Posting jobs in one place isn't enough to find quality candidates. With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to more than 100 job boards, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. Just post once and watch your candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. ZipRecruiter offers optimized pages that look great on any screen. Add their unique mobile apply process for more visitors and more applicants. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. No more juggling emails or calls to your office. You can add multiple users to your account. Quickly screen candidates with real-world questions using free-form, multiple choice, or yes/no formats. View candidate responses in conjunction with their beautifully formatted resumes. Rate them and hire the right person fast. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. More than 125 million candidate applications have been delivered. Right now, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/TNT. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TNT, and we thank ZipRecruiter for their support of Tech News Today. So there's no doubt that online learning has real advantages, but I think it's safe to say that all of the kinks have yet to be worked out. Today, BuzzFeed reports that part of the problem is finding out if students are really showing up or not to their online classes. In American public schools, funding is based on how many students show up on a daily basis, but some critics say that in online schools, credit and funding is coming when students log in for just 1 minute a day. The Electronic Classroom of Tomorrow, or ECOT, uses state funds for education, but recent reports say the for-profit business funnels a lot of that money toward its founders' own companies. It's not as if issues with charter school funding are new with online learning, though, and ECOT says the lack of logging in has to do with their population of students who are transient by nature and prone to dropping out. What do you think about this story, Iain?
I think, quite frankly, it's a scandal. it's the whole charter school system is deeply concerning. I mean, there are some fantastic charter schools, and I'm obviously not an American, so I've not experienced the charter school system, but there do seem to be some very schools out there. But there seem to be a lot of flim-flam merchants out there as well. And if your funding is based on how many students actually attend classes, then you've got to have a way of showing exactly how it's done. Now, it's never going to be perfect. A really smart student would find out a way to write a software program which looked as though they were there and they could go off and do other things. But in that kind of situation, if they're that good anyway, then, more power to them. But it just seemed that, the potential for abuse and fraud here is very high. As I say, I'm not an expert on charter schools, but John Oliver had an excellent segment on this, which raised some really troubling questions. There seems to be very little oversight. An awful lot of government money is being funneled into these organisations, and we need to know whether we're getting our money's worth out of it. And at the moment, there are serious holes in oversight on this.
Absolutely. I mean, there have been a lot of studies that say online learners are not learning as much in math and reading, and there's federal data that says the same thing. I think it's not just charter schools that get their funding from how many students are in school. Just all public schools get that based on their students, how many students are there, how well they're doing. That's how their funding works. But I guess charter schools are the schools that also get the public funding by doing something in a slightly different way. So, it does seem like a scam. But what they're fighting back about, which also makes sense, is that these are students that are transient. They might drop out anyway. This is sort of the last resort for them for whatever reason. Online learning is the last. So it's not surprising that they would drop out. But I am suspect of any for-profit school, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't say that. I think there are some things like education that you really shouldn't be making a profit out of, because or healthcare for that matter, because it takes away from the central goal. I'm also very skeptical about online learning. There's been a lot of psychological studies on this, and information which you receive and process online or on a screen is retained much more poorly by the brain than information that you actually read in a physical book, and particularly if you write it down. If you handwrite information, you're much more likely to understand it and to remember it and to use it going onward. So internet learning has its place. I mean, particularly in places like Alaska or more remote regions where you can't get to a school and you want to have a class or get together, then online would be great for that. But if you're going to do that, I can't help feeling you should be doing video conferencing, because that would really clear all this up straight away, because you could see directly whether somebody was there. You probably couldn't see if they're wearing trousers or not, but you could see that they were at least, attending classes. Internet learning, it's got to be a last resort. And I'm not honestly convinced that it's particularly helpful as a teaching methodology. If that's all they're getting, if they're not getting any class time at all, they're just getting information from the internet. Not only are they, I think, getting a poorer quality of education, but you're also missing out on many of the key social skills that you learn about being in a school with a bunch of other kids.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know people that homeschool and use, video conferencing to supplement that, where they're with other homeschoolers in, video conferences, and that they've had success with that. So, yeah, I don't know. And definitely, like, as a, just part of the school, my kids really take advantage of being able to use Google Classroom, being able to collaborate like on their homework at night when they're home. Those things are great. But being in the classroom with a teacher, there's no, I think if you can do that, then you should.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's not only does it teach you good socialization skills, you would get more from a teacher can actually address more individual points. And yeah, homeschooling here does seem to be huge. I don't quite get why exactly, but people obviously have their own concerns about schools. But if you're going to have internet learning, then you've got to have accountability, particularly when there's government funding involved. And I do think you need people to physically check on the kids and make sure they're okay, because so often it's the teachers who are the first people to notice if a kid's being abused, or if they're being beaten, or if they're having troubles at home, and can help out. We all remember that one really great teacher who made school something which we appreciated and something which helped us. And I don't think you're going to get that online.
Well, Iain, thank you again for coming. Iain is a reporter at the Register, a frequent guest on Twit and the Screensavers, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you again soon. And you have a lot of great pieces on there that we haven't talked about. You wrote about Hillary Clinton's email just a couple of hours ago, and some other pieces about Uber, and some always great work, and always great to talk to you.
Oh, no, I always have terrific fun when I come on here, so it's always a pleasure. And no, always enjoy our chats, Megan.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Speak to you soon. Have a great weekend.
You too. We won't be here on Monday because of the holiday weekend in the U.S., but TNT does record live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be part of the show. Just send us an email at tnt@twit.tv or leave us a short voicemail at 260-TNT-SHOW. You can also hit us up on Twitter. We're at Tech News Today TV. You can find all the ways to subscribe to our show at twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I'm at Megan Morrone. Thanks to Kara, our technical director, Mario for running the teleprompter, Kevin for editing and making us look good, and thanks to you for listening or watching until the bitter end. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.